Welcome to FS Brew. FS Brew is the region's first podcast focusing on all things insurance and InsureTech in the UAE and the broader Middle East. I'm Renjit Phillip, and I work with a boutique consulting firm where I work on M&A, funding, and go-to-market support for startups and tech companies.
Hi, I'm Vidya. I'm the founder of Forward, a startup that works with insurance companies to build their go-to-market digital propositions. In today's episode, we have with us Richard Mockett. He is the Middle East and Africa CEO for Howden Insurance Brokers. Now, Richard is overseeing their specialty operations and retail operations in the region. He has a background of insurance, reinsurance for a variety of sectors like energy, power companies across the world. Now, in 2019, he was the SEO for Howden Specialty, which is based out of DIFC. And then in 2022, he took on his current role. It was great to understand Howden's outlook on very critical topics like energy, cybersecurity, and climate risk resilience. Hi, Richard. Welcome to FS Brew. It is great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We typically ask this question to all our guests. How did you get into this career? Why insurance? It's never the first choice for most of us.
Yeah, very true. So they often say that insurance is an industry you fall into when looking for something else, and I'm certainly no different in that regard. I originally studied history at the University of Liverpool, and after graduating, I decided to go traveling. When I came back, I'd had a eureka moment and decided that I was going to go and be a full-time DJ. So I decided to try that for a little bit, soon realizing that it wasn't really going to pay the bills. So I started looking around for different industries that I could go into. And originally I was exploring looking at stockbroking or trading or something like that. And then one day, just by complete coincidence, I stumbled across an advertisement for insurance broking at a previous firm that I was at called JLT for their graduate scheme. So I applied for that, and after a bit of a lengthy interview process and a few tests and exams, I was accepted onto their graduate scheme, and the rest is history, as they say.
We have to get a music clip for the podcast from you then.
Definitely.
All right. So for our listeners who may not fully know the depth of work Howden does, can you explain what an international insurance broker like Howden does in the regions that we are in and the ones that you manage?
Sure. So if I step back first and tell you maybe a bit about Howden Group and then more about what we're doing in the region. Howden Group itself, we're actually 30 years old this year, which is fantastic. We were formed in 1994 by David Howden and two other colleagues. And David Howden is still our CEO today, so still leading the business today, which is brilliant. Originally, we started out really focused on financial lines in the UK. And David's decision to start that business was born out of the fact that there was a lot of consolidation going on at the time, particularly in the UK insurance market, where insurance brokers were being bought up by some of the big broking houses like the Aons and Marshes. So he decided to go alone and set up his own independent broker. We've gone from 3 people to now nearly 20,000 people worldwide. We're in 55 different countries. We handle about £40 billion worth of premium income globally. And that really puts us up there within kind of the top 10. And we now have the mantle of being, I think it's the largest insurance broker outside of the US. The reason for that is because we deal with a lot of wholesale US business placed through and into the London markets and various different retail or independent brokers in the US. But everywhere else, we very much have a significant footprint. And that's no less in the Middle East region. So I look after the Middle East and Africa. That comprises today of 9 offices across 6 different countries spread out. So our headquarters is here in Dubai. We're also in Bahrain, we're in Oman, we're in Tanzania, South Africa, Morocco, and then we're soon to be expanding into Saudi Arabia as well. In this region, we have about 300 people, and we handle about £400 million worth of premium income coming out of the region. So yeah, it's not insignificant, but we're also growing very quickly as well. Exciting times for Howden.
Oh, indeed.
So tell us more about the expansion plans within the Middle East and the Africa region. Why those countries? What's the reason for expanding into those countries?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So if I start with, I mentioned Saudi Arabia is very much a key priority for us at the moment. We're going through the process, and I hope to be imminently announcing us coming into Saudi Arabia. Our strategy there is twofold. We are looking to set up a greenfield reinsurance broker there. So we've already received our license in principle, and we're now just working through the documentation and requirements to convert that into a full license. So that should happen in the next few months. Simultaneously, we're currently looking at doing a potential M&A deal on the retail side, which will immediately give us the sort of scale and scope that we need to be able to enter into that retail space within Saudi Arabia. I guess the question, why Saudi Arabia? Obviously, it really is the kind of beating heart of the Middle East when you look at it from a GDP sense. The growth is very significant there. There's really also just a general feel, I think, within the Middle East that from a business perspective, certainly there really is a gravitational pull around Saudi Arabia at the moment. If you look at the investment that they're making there and how they've modernized and the sort of vision of the 2030 vision that they have for Saudi Arabia, it's very key that as an international broker of Howden's sort of size and scale, we need to be in countries such as that. Secondly, as we've also grown and we've expanded as a multinational broker, we've taken on many multinational clients, and a lot of those clients are either operating in Saudi Arabia or have plans to enter into Saudi Arabia. And as their broker of choice, we need to be able to service those clients in country as well. So we feel that's an incredibly important expansion point. Secondly, we're also looking to expand our footprint in Africa as well. Now, our strategy is a little different there, where what we're looking to do is enter into or expand within markets that are key strongholds for us, where we feel that there's a strategic reason to be there, and it will help us also service clients within neighboring countries around that. As I mentioned previously, we're in South Africa, we're in Tanzania, and we're in Morocco at the moment. We're hoping to add Kenya to that within the next year. So we're looking at some M&A activity there. And then we're also looking to expand our existing offering in South Africa and really enter a more sort of retail specialty market there, because at the moment we're very reinsurance heavy in South Africa. So lots going on in the region, very exciting.
It's never a dull moment. Now, just going a little bit into some of the lines that you help your clients with. I recently did a consulting assignment with a cyber InsureTech company out of Canada, and I realized this is a hotspot, right? Middle East in terms of cyber risks. So would love to know a little bit more about cyber. What is the data you're seeing, and why indeed are we now seeing this higher frequency of attacks, and how is Howden helping manage these cyber risks for your clients?
Yeah, sure. Cyber is a very big component of what we do. And I think if I just start by answering that question with a couple of interesting data points. Over 85% of companies in the UAE have experienced some form of cyber incident in the last 2 years. Over 65% of UAE businesses have reported a data breach within the last 2 years. Finally, over 68% of companies in the UAE have experienced a ransomware attack within the last 2 years as well. The reason for that really is that the Middle East itself has started to emerge very much as a global hub for technology and innovation. We've seen whether it's crypto, whether it's InsureTech, it's really brimming with opportunity and growth within the region. And with that, obviously becomes like a heightened sense of cyber exposure or potential cyber threat. And then secondly, what we're also seeing is that more incidents are becoming publicly disclosed. And with that, there's a rising awareness of cyber as a potential threat within the region, and also what it can do to businesses if they are crippled by a cyber attack. At Howden, our approach has been twofold. Not only do we want to try and assist entities with a risk transfer mechanism for their insurance needs when it comes to cyber, but we also want to try and foster a robust cyber culture. And by that, the education piece, providing effective deterrence, enabling them to respond correctly, and also be vigilant to cyber attacks that could happen to their company. And on that basis, we've really borne out some really exciting products that we started bringing to market. So we have one called Cyber Plus, which is really targeting more of an SME and mid-market segment. And that came out of the fact that existing cyber products today are very intrusive when it comes to the level of information that clients are required to provide in order to get some form of cyber cover. And so we looked at that pain point and came up with a solution for it, whereby on the Cyber Plus product that we offer, clients only have to provide 4 elements of information, 4 data points we need, plus they need to have a valid website address. And then from that, we can pre-underwrite it and then be able to give them a quote within 24 hours that is also very competitively priced. The evolution of that, we've now taken that up the next level to a larger client segment under our CyberSafe product, which very similarly done is a product to really service those bigger size clients who also require a significant level of cyber cover, but don't necessarily have the relevant information or can provide the relevant information that we need to be able to put together a comprehensive product that's really detailed and expand and really broad in the sense of cover that they need. So we've tried to give a more unified product that can service and appeal to that client segment as well. So cyber, it's a big area, and it continues to be a global threat and something that everyone in society is becoming more and more aware of.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
it sounds like a retail product as well, because it feels like you need to build that sort of awareness, which I think is a big gap in the market, and also just improving the CX experience. You mentioned just 4 points and then you get the product. It sounds quite exciting because you can embed that quite nicely across different touch points. So yeah, it's a number of components like the retail product.
Correct. And I think that with cyber, I would say that we didn't have cyber 20 years ago in terms of an exposure. And I think that for a while now, cyber has sat on a crossroad between whether it is really a peril that should be underwritten within an existing program or if it's an actual product line on itself. Cyber threats have evolved, and as the solutions have evolved themselves, it's gravitated more towards that product segment. And you've also simultaneously seen that existing lines of business, say energy or property, have sought to remove that exposure and really push it into its own segment. So that's something that I think we will continue to see evolve as the cyber product and cyber industry itself evolves in the future.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So another exciting area that Howden focuses on is energy sector. It's quite dynamic. It's also very critical against the whole need to produce greener energy. Now, we've seen very active conversations from Howden at COP28, at COP29. Tell us about the trends that are shaping this very important sector, and how does insurance play a very critical part in deploying these green projects and just aligning with this whole ESG standards that's gaining importance?
I would say energy transition and climate risk and resilience is very much a big part of Howden's offering today. We have one of the biggest climate risk and resilience teams in the market now. You rightfully point out Howden as a company has been very active at the last few COPs. David Howden himself has spoken at the last few COPs as well. It's very much central to what we do and what we want to be able to provide to wider society from an insurance standpoint. Insurance has a really important part to play within the transition to a greener energy. We like to say that insurance is like the battery in the Tesla, right? Because it helps provide a flow of capital into new technologies that might not otherwise happen if insurance wasn't there to play its part. And at Howden, we're trying to offer a holistic insurance solution across the full value chain. So whether that is providing insurance products which enable us to unlock capital by providing wraparound covers for wraparound covers for new technology through structured insurance products, or if we're underwriting the construction of new prototypical plants, or if we're providing the physical loss and damage element once they go operational. Really, Howden's there at every step of the way to try and help provide a solution to unlocking investment and providing the correct level of cover that we need for this new technology as we move to a greener future. So that's one element. And then the other part that we're also playing is that we're also trying to provide new and innovative solutions to existing exposures that are across a societal basis that are starting to be more prevalent. So if you look at just what happened in the last year within the UAE itself, obviously we had those substantial storms back in March, April time this year. Those have started to become more commonplace, and they've started to become more significant in their nature and the damage that they are causing within the UAE and within the Middle East region. And what we've done is seen that as a pinch point, and we've come up with a product called a storm recovery fund, where it's basically underwritten by parametric insurance, but it enables governments or particular emirates or maybe even some of the private sector, to put together a kind of recovery fund that enables them to immediately deploy it in the event of a significant loss or a significant catastrophe event. And that's really just underpinned by parametric insurance, which will pay out regardless of the level of damage, but purely on how much rainfall has happened, how much wind has blown, etc. So we see that as really being a future sort of area of expansion for Howden, but also a future area of interest for governments and local sort of society and local businesses alike as cat events become more and more prevalent and more real, particularly within this region. On ESG, I think it's fair to say that the insurance market is trying to help in part by showing more favourable rating now to clients who are committed to a longer term ESG strategy. Whereas before it used to be really a bit of a column ticking exercise, to be honest. Clients would come in and underwriters would want to ask you, do you have an ESG strategy? Now they're much more focused on it and they really want to see what they're doing and how that's impacting their current operations as they try and plan for the future. And what we're also seeing is the opposite now. So we're seeing that where companies and clients don't necessarily have a concrete ESG strategy, they're actually being penalised for it by the insurance market, either through higher rating or by the decision for insurers just simply not to want to deploy their own capacity on those risks. So I think this is, again, another really important segment that we're seeing. And as an insurance broker, we're trying to stand side by side with our clients and help them through this transition period and navigate this kind of new way of thinking when it comes to ESG and the importance that it can play when they're purchasing their insurance.
Yeah. Okay. Just a quick question on the parametric piece. So is that a technology platform also that Howden provides, or is the whole suite? So
it's a full scope. We do have a specific platform as well, and that is part of it. But really the parametric insurance itself, how it works is that it sits behind the fund. So rather than needing to capitalize a fund and have that money sitting aside for want of a better word, excuse the pun, a rainy day, what we actually do is provide the insurance to underwrite it so that when there is an incident of magnitude and certain points are triggered, say a certain amount of rainfall, then insurance will immediately pay out and provide the capital that can then be deployed to basically help either with certain damages or help fund certain requirements to real protections for the future. I think you might recall that from a federal level, when the storms happened back in April, the UAE government announced, I think it was a 2 billion dirham fund to help with restoring some of the damage that had happened during those storms. They presumably have just obviously paid for this out of their own pocket. So what we're trying to do is offer an assurance solution so that going forward, certain local governments or even the federal government, not just within the UAE, but actually within the wider Middle East, are able to have this as a backstop and know that they can call on this parametric insurance to provide the funding for any storm recovery amount that they deploy into their given country.
Yeah, I'm seeing some interesting examples of parametrics being deployed for the California fire situation as well.
And sorry, I was just going to say on that, Howden has been very pioneering on the use of parametric. We actually taking a step back a few years, and really what was born out of our decision to really go heavily into the risk and resilience place was these new innovative products. So we were the first broker to launch a volcano insurance, which again very similar parametric insurance, which helped provide the immediate funding should there be a volcanic event, and that money was given to charity, in this case the Red Cross or Red Crescent, to enable them to immediately deploy relief in the event that there is a volcanic eruption in certain jurisdictions. Howden is very much at the forefront of this side.
That's true. So we did actually read a report as well against all the other projects within the whole realm of climate risk resilience itself. So Howden has been doing very creative ways of existing products, but just making sure that sort of product is put in place right at the start of a project, and therefore you're able to deploy the capital or whatever the other resources required to make sure the projects go in place as well. So yeah, quite a lot of work being done there.
So from ESG projects to supply chain risks, we are sitting in a region which has the attention of all the world these days. We read that Howden launched a sort of first of its kind insurance facility to protect vessels from the missile strikes by the Yemeni groups, right? So this Red Sea war risk facility. So we read that it offers up to $50 million of coverage plus per insured vehicle. Tell us a little bit about your role in facilitating trade and commerce and managing these all-important supply chain risks in this region.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important to note that supply chain risk is really one of the number one concerns when it comes to a security risk in the region. And we can see that by the fact that a high proportion of global trade is now moving around the Cape rather than going through the Red Sea. So the idea of this facility was really to mitigate the financial loss that would occur in the event of a war risk attack going through the Red Sea. So if I give you the background on it, basically before the escalations in the Red Sea, marine cargo underwriters used to insure these war risks along with their own marine risks in the same insurance placement. And then after the escalation, we started to see that an appetite in the marine cargo market changed, and they no longer wanted to include this cover within their existing insurances. So we needed to try and find a solution for the war risk element for cargo transitioning through the Red Sea. We were faced with the problem where there was less underwriting appetite, and also there was a lack of claims handling experience for these specific wars and strikes. So we decided to come up with this facility. It provides 50 million per vessel. So we feel that's quite substantial and really captures quite a large segment of the shipments that are transitioning through the Red Sea. But we can actually go to a higher limit if we want to, or if we need to, which is good. And then the idea behind it was that it could provide a swift response. We semi-underwrite it in advance anyway, which is really good. And then it also provides competitive rating, which is another key point. And then alongside that, we bolted that in with a wider product around market intelligence, claim data, and then being able to provide crucial risk management insights to clients. So they had an awareness piece added to it as well, and were more familiar with the ever-changing risks that were going on in that Red Sea region. It's been really successful. We're really proud of the product. It's worth noting that, of course, there is the human element to it. So we have still seen that a lot of clients are deciding to continue to transition around the Cape because they still don't want to expose their crew members to a potential war risk. But for those that are now going through or have decided to either go back or continue to go through the Red Sea shipment lane, we now have a product there that is available for them and that can provide an insurance solution.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you've seen some traffic change more towards the Red Sea rather than the Cape, but yeah, you answered it.
No, I think it goes through ebbs and flows. Definitely more shipments are going around the Cape. That's undeniable, but we are able to provide some level of insurance for them to give that comfort that there is a protection there should they choose to go through the Red Sea. And there has been a bit more of a pickup now, I think, in recent times that some are still choosing to, or that some are deciding to go back and transition through that.
Right. Okay. So now we move to the other big risk, which is the AI. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
We can't really do an episode on FS Brew without talking about this whole impact of Gen AI. It's all over. So how's Howden using Gen AI within the organization, or maybe for the clients? Is it just a hype, or something is just coming up in future?
Yeah, good question. It's obviously definitely here to stay, right? And it's having a profound effect, not just on insurance, but on many industries across the board. Insurance is no different from that sector. How we're seeing AI currently embed itself within our industry is a few different elements. We're seeing more personalization for customers, either through chatbots or the use of customer data. We're seeing faster claims processing because AI is able to automate some of the claims process that was otherwise done on a more manual basis. We're also seeing more fraud through the use of AI, which can detect different patterns of fraud that might be occurring in insurance claims. And then it's also helping with some more of the legacy systems that need to be onboarded in terms of extracting data from it that was otherwise done on a manual basis that can now be done through AI algorithms. So yeah, AI is having an impact on insurance. When it comes to some more specialist standpoint, or the bigger corporate side, I would say we're seeing, or Howden are deploying it in a few different segments. Certainly, probably the most relevant, which would be no surprise, is the cyber industry and how AI is being used there to detect threats. I mentioned our Cyber Plus facility before, so we actually have an AI segment to that. Our AI technology will actually go through a lot of public available data and sift through that already so that we can pull out the information that's relevant to the underwriting without needing to trouble the client themselves with doing that. So that's been a really useful tool for us and a way that we've tried to deploy AI or utilize AI in a method that is helping service our clients and helping us with our product itself. And then we're also on the CyberSafe side, which is the bigger product that I mentioned. We're starting to embed the use of AI technology so that it will help correlate cyber improvements in real time for our clients and tell them where there's potential exposure that they could otherwise mitigate, along with providing a proficient policy. So again, AI, very useful tool that's helping us with our sort of pre-underwriting methods and helping us provide a better picture for our clients. And I think that as we continue to expand our service offering, we'll continue to utilize AI in a more proficient fashion across more product lines as well. Yeah, it's definitely here to stay, definitely helps. And the most important thing is about our clients getting better service from it and better cover for it, which I think that AI can really help with.
I think in the cyber area, it's quite clear some of these risks don't even exist. You need AI by your side to monitor any abnormalities that's happening in your network. And then you can say, hey, there's something going wrong. Just check it. So that's a co-pilot for you.
Precisely.
Let's switch gear to regulations a little bit. Central Bank passed a number of broker regulations, and I think these are coming in force by 2025. So what are your thoughts on the recent regulations? And this is UAE specific. And there's a whole debate on the premium collection piece where some brokers used to trade that in place for discounts and stuff like that. What do you think is going to happen in the market in the short term and the longer term as this regulation comes into force?
Yeah, good question. It's certainly a very hot topic at the moment in the UAE. So I'd say that the changes are really aimed at trying to strengthen transparency, governance, and customer protection within the industry, right? My view is that personally, it's a really big step forward, and it better ensures more fair practices amongst brokers and insurance companies within the industry. From my side, sort of a high level, it definitely gets a big thumbs up. I think there's some key aspects which you also touched on some of them, and the sort of key points that are very relevant and at the top of the agenda in these changes is the prohibition of certain practices. So brokers now can't engage in other insurance related professions outside of their broking profession. Discounts for clients. So brokers can't now discount off their remuneration. Only insurance companies can do that, which actually makes it much more of a level playing field. Also, claim settlement. So brokers are no longer allowed to handle the claim settlement directly. That must be done between the insurer and policyholder. And to be honest, that helps minimize the risk of disputes and provides an enhanced trust between the insurer and the insured. And then finally, as you mentioned about the premium payment as well. So now clients need to pay directly to insurers. And then furthermore, insurers are required to pay the remuneration to brokers within a 10-day window.
Yes.
And I think that when you look at those key points, they're really there to help maintain a liquidity within the insurance community and stamp out bad practices. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see. Not that I'm a betting person, but if I was, I think that you might see some smaller brokers who have maybe operated more opaque practices in the past might struggle. And I think that it will also better professionalize some of the insurers who perhaps have been much slower in claims payment and passing on premiums and broker commission in the past. So definitely a good sign and a solid step in the right direction.
It should professionalize the market a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing already some M&A activity that have started as well. This market is a very retail market. Now, typically, many international brokers have refrained from focusing on retail, personalized business, because it takes a lot to win one customer. But then in the recent past, we understand that many of these international brokers are looking to diversify, looking to get into the personalized business. So we wanted to know is Howden looking to build its personalized distribution strategy as well?
Yeah, good question. So I'd start by saying that personal lines for Howden is a big piece of what we do globally. So in the UK, for example, a few years ago, we purchased a company called Plan, which at times was one of the biggest personal lines insurance brokers and high street brokers in the UK. And that gave us a huge footprint on our sort of home turf within the United Kingdom. And it continues to be a very profitable segment, a very big segment of what we offer in the UK. So Howden is certainly not not involved in personal lines, far from it. We're very much see it as a cornerstone of what we offer. Here in the UAE and the Middle East generally, it's a little bit different. I think that if you look at the personal lines segment as an overall space, the penetration within personal lines insurance is probably less in the Middle East. There's less uptake in the Middle East than there is in maybe other jurisdictions. And part of that is because of maturity and buy habits. Part of that is because there's just a perceived lesser level of risk, right? Crime rates are much lower in the Middle East, which is a good thing, but it means that people don't necessarily see insurance as a core product that they need. It's an area that we've looked at and we see value, but focusing our attention requires a lot of investment, and the margins are much smaller here in the Middle East than, say, vis-a-vis in the UK. Now, that being said, we do see that on the kind of private client segment, which is for high net worth individuals, we see that very much as a core segment of what we do here in the Middle East. And we feel that it's important to be able to provide a full product service offering so that for those type of clients, we can offer them the full array of assurances, not just here, but also for maybe assets that they have abroad. And in turn, that also leads to us sort of building broker client engagement that might lead to us then doing their insurance for their companies that they own, for example. So that part of the kind of personal line segment is very much in focus for us and will continue to be in focus for us, and is a very fast growing segment of what we do. But more general personal lines is probably something that we will hold on for the moment here in the Middle East and see how it matures over time.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. Got it. We talked about AI. That's really about innovation, right? And we have this story that some consultants like me spread, is that the bigger you get, the less innovative the company becomes. So how do you foster that culture of innovation within Howden? And do you support InsureTechs in this process? Do they have a role to play at all?
Yeah. So I guess there's two parts to that question. So the first part, on the cultural part, culture for Howden is an incredibly important thing. We always say that culture is not something that you can just write down on a wall or on a piece of paper. It's something that you have to really feel and be embedded within and experience. That's no different for Howden. We like to consider ourselves to be different from some of the maybe bigger US corporate players within the market, and we like to try and offer a different service offering. And part of that also comes from our unique ownership structure. Howden is privately owned, but we are majority owned by our employees. And that really gives a different touch and feel to the business, because the majority or a large segment of our employees are shareholders. And with that, there is a different level of care, a different level of drive that comes with doing business when you're representing Howden. Now, obviously, the same thing that Howden is faced with is lots of companies are faced with, that we've had some fantastic growth over the last 5 to 10 years, and long may it continue. But with that, you need to mature as a business. I would say the same practices that got you here are not necessarily the practices that will get you there. And that's something that we are going through at the moment as we continue to mature as a business. But certainly what is central to that is our need to hold on to our culture at Howden, because that really drives our business and it's what attracts people to our business as well. So that's the culture piece. On the InsureTech piece, I think InsureTech's a really interesting space, right? It's very much at the kind of the frontier of innovation within insurance. And I think that InsureTech also covers a very wide range of things. And I think that you will see InsureTech play a more and more prevalent role in certain areas of insurance. We will see a lot of failures, because you do see a lot of failures in any sort of new pioneering segment. But those that stay will grow stronger and become more central to how insurance is purchased and analysed and offered in the future.
Is there a way they reach out to you or to your office?
Yeah, so we do have some engagement with different InsureTechs. You know, Howden itself, we have a specific segment within Howden that deals with sort of data and analytics. It used to be called Howden X. It's now been more incorporated within the company, but that was really set up to develop new sort of InsureTech lines and the use of data and analytics and how that can be utilized to better service both our service offering and also clients' needs. So we are very pioneering when it comes to InsureTech. In the region, I think that Howden itself is not offering InsureTech products, but there are a lot of InsureTech companies that are incubated here, incubated in the DIFC, and we're very keen to engage with them and see how we can work together to better improve the product offering here in the region.
Okay. Nice. That sounds good. Exciting. So on your personal sort of career graph, DJ to insurance executive, but where we did go through your LinkedIn profile, we saw that you worked in the UK markets and in the recent past in the Middle East. And it feels like the graph is just going up and up, but certainly it would have come with some challenges. Now tell us a time when you faced a challenging situation at work, say Howden, and how did you overcome that?
I think there's, if I was to think about a couple of different challenges at Howden. So when I joined Howden, that was back in 2019, at the end of 2019, and only a few months later, we stumbled into COVID, right? And that was at a time where we joined and it was a new operation. So we had very little business in the DIFC entity, which I was in charge of at the time. It was a stressful point because you couldn't be out there, you couldn't be traveling, you couldn't be visiting clients, but we really overcame that by pulling ourselves together, trying to take a longer view on things. You just try and utilize your relationships wherever you can. And also we had some fantastic support from Group in London, ensuring that everyone was okay and that everyone was looked after and that the support was there if needed. So that was a challenge that was overcome. A sort of second one I would probably say is I took over looking after the region just over 2 years ago. I adopted some challenges that were within the business at the time because Howden in the region had grown incredibly quickly within the Middle East and Africa in a very short period of time. With that, things start to wobble a little bit. We spent a lot of time overcoming that, making sure that we're more cohesive in how we work, that we're more joined up, and that we have the correct support in place, whether that's from an operational standpoint, a legal standpoint, a compliance standpoint, so that we're well equipped for both now and the future growth that we plan to do. So again, another challenge, and it's been something that we very much overcome, and we're in a very strong position, certainly a much stronger position today than we were 2 years ago.
Okay, perfect. And so as we kind of wind down the podcast, we just want to take a look at what you think is your vision for Howden in the region, particularly in the sort of risk advisory landscape or any other piece that you look towards.
Yeah, no, that's very relevant. So our vision for Howden is to grow, obviously. We have some very ambitious growth targets for the next 5 years, but they're not unrealistic. I think that we can do it. As I said, we touched on where we're planning to expand, and that will be very key to what we want to do. And we really want to be able to build out service offering within the region to be there as the viable alternative to those US corporates. And we are at a stage we're at that today. We've seen a lot of interest within Howden over the last 5 years, and the clientele that we have today is very different in a good way than it was maybe 5 years ago. So we want to continue on that journey, and we want to continue to be able to offer the full holistic solution across the insurance value chain, whether that's insurance, whether that's risk advisory, whether that's risk management. And so we're working to do that and bring new products, new ideas, and new service offerings to the region.
So we've introduced this section called the rapid fire, essentially to get to see the person behind the leader and get to know the person a little better. So we've got a punchy set of questions. You've got to be quite quick and rapid about it in terms of your response. So if you're ready, are you okay to have some of these coming your way?
Yep.
Okay. So what's the biggest lesson you've learned in your career?
Hold clear opinions that can be loosely held.
Okay. And what's one word to describe your leadership style?
Energetic.
Okay, great. What's your favorite city for travel, for pleasure, for business?
Yeah, I have a couple. I love to visit Cape Town, which I get the opportunity to do both in a professional capacity and then also in a personal capacity. I really love visiting California, which I appreciate is not a city, but very much a place that me and my family like to go.
Right.
So what's like this, your favorite book or in a blog or a podcast or a documentary or a TED talk that you seem to be recommending the most?
Yeah, I now read it a little while ago, but I would say Morgan Housel's Psychology of Money, which I actually think that they should make part of the curriculum in school.
I think so, yes. Yeah. So what's like this most exciting tech innovation for you from insurance, specifically from insurance point of view?
That is a very good question, and one that doesn't come to mind straight away. I would say, I think that, touching on what we mentioned before, the introduction of AI and how it's going to be utilized within insurance as a whole is really exciting. I think that over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll actually see it play such a significant role in how insurance is procured and how it's underwritten as well. So I think that's really exciting.
Yeah,
Indeed. Over to you, Renjit.
who's the sort of most inspiring entrepreneur or business leader for you?
I've got a couple, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably say Warren Buffett.
And what is one emerging industry trend that you're most excited about?
Other than cyber, which obviously we've touched upon already, I think that the use of insurance in energy transition has become, and how it's going to be used in climate risk and resilience, is also really interesting and really exciting. And I think that from a proud standpoint of being an insurance practitioner, seeing how insurance can be utilised in the future for the greater good is a really exciting prospect.
Absolutely. And what would you say is the one top priority for Howden in your region in 2025?
Opening in Saudi Arabia.
One sector or industry in the Middle East that you see as having the most dynamic insurance needs right now?
Which sector did you say?
Sector or industry, yeah.
Yeah, which sector? That's very interesting. I would say that there's a lot of sectors that need insurance or that are utilising insurance more and more. I would say that the banking sector, it's quite exciting with what's happening because of the amount of investment that's been put into new projects, new areas, and how insurance is helping that with the risk transfer mechanism. The obvious ones like renewable energy are exciting as well, because renewable energy and the commitment to going to a greener, brighter future means that there's more renewable energy projects happening, and so more insurance is needed within that sector. So that in itself as well is exciting and dynamic.
Absolutely. And I think to the banking point, because of these new open banking and open finance changes, that should open up a lot of interesting risks that need coverage.
Absolutely.
And to end it, what is the biggest risk you ever taken?
The biggest risk, certainly one that springs to mind, was probably my decision to leave my last company and join Howden, which at the time was a bit more of an unknown entity. So it felt like I was stepping into the great unknown. But I can definitely say over 5 years later, I'm very glad that I made that move.
That kind of brings us to the end of this podcast. It was great to have you talk about all these exciting developments and insurance. And we proved that insurance is not that boring as people think it is, right?
Exactly. And you guys keep up the great work, because I think it's fantastic that you're bringing insurance to the mainstream and letting more people know about it.
Thanks so much.